Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Rayno with the Rayno team. Welcome today. It's great to be here. And I've got a great guest. Her name is Rachel, and I hope pronounce her last name right. Is it Osland?
Osland. But yes,
Osland.
in
See, I knew I'd
Sweden
get
it
it
would be
wrong.
Osland. Yes.
And you're with Lodestar Inspections. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. A lodestar is a light that guides you home. So that's why I
Oh,
chose the name. Yes.
nice. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in your business. Give us the 2 minute elevator speech about yourself.
Well, thank you. I've been a home inspector and I'm a certified master inspector. I've been one since 2006 and in the Maryland, DC, Northern Virginia, Southern Pennsylvania area. And I have 6 home inspectors who work for me. And
Wow.
yes, and we are hiring. So if you know someone in our area, please, that would be very useful. But so I've been doing this and love inspecting, and part of it is the education piece. And so one of my commitments in starting this company was to really have it be that inspections are an educational and empowering experience as opposed to terrifying, because there's no pass or fail. There's nothing that can't be fixed. It just, these things just take time or money. And there's no such
Hmm.
thing as a perfect house. So my favorite thing to say is that there's only 2 types of houses. There's ones that have problems, and then there's ones that are going to have problems.
Uh, and this leads me to taking a deeper dive into this thinking. I usually go through a house with a client and I show them what I make their observations. I make clear up front. I'm not an inspector. Really, don't
Mhm.
take my opinion as being that of an inspector, but I'm just making observations that may require the ability of an inspector to come in and kind of solidify what I'm saying. But why should anyone get an inspection, even on a new house? Why should they get an inspection?
Well, the the biggest thing is the emotional attachment that we have to things, that we get really connected to something, find the house that's perfect for us, and here we are. It's close to work, it's close to church or school or whatever it is, near my sister, wherever you want to live. And then you tend to not see the flaws as objectively, and everything has flaws. And so part of it is just, it's like buying something online. Let's say buying something on Temu, and it looks so perfect on one of those on there, but you order it online, it looks beautiful, you get it, you open the package, and before you take all the plastic and all the wrappings off, it still looks pretty good. And you start to unwrap it and you go, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff. And what's different is, so in that analogy, is that that's what happens with the home inspection. Basically, you've seen it online, and that's the picture to draw you in, like Temu does. And then you go and you see it and you go, okay, well, there are things that are not quite like they were in the picture. My husband saw our dining room on the pictures and said, oh my gosh, it's huge. It looks like a bowling alley. And we got here and it's this tiny little space, but you see it and it's like, okay, well, that's fine. Well, then the home inspection is like unwrapping that package from Temu and going, oh my gosh, what is this? It doesn't mean it's not going to fulfill the intended purpose. It just means that it's not perfect and you suddenly are exposed to these things. And so having an objective view of what's happening is important, but that home inspection, it can save thousands and thousands of dollars, because whether you use it to negotiate, and that's beyond the scope of a home inspector, but if it's used, the information is used to negotiate, that's great. But it's also, even if you're buying a house as is and have a home inspection, you have this information that then you can use to objectively handle things after you move in. So
This is the most important thing. This is one of the biggest investments of their life. And so this inspection is protecting them from putting money down on something that might hurt them in the long run. So it's a good thing, right?
right, 100%. And everyone's in a different spot, which is why it's so important. Like a home inspector or an agent isn't going to say you shouldn't buy this or yes, you should buy this, because everyone wants something different and has a different skill set, different social sphere of people that they can call on for things.
Hmm.
And so we did an inspection, and the electric panel was so um, bad is the only word I can use. It was not the way it was supposed to be. And when we took the cover off, went, okay, don't touch light switches, don't touch anything. And but stay calm. I mean, it's everything can be fixed. But this woman buying the house just said, "Oh no, it's fine. My dad's a master electrician, and he's upgrading the electric to the house for our wedding gift. So it's fine." But everybody has their own people that they can call on, or they don't. And so we can't say, "Oh, you should get this house or don't buy it." We even
Mhm.
did a house that two parents were buying for their daughter who had been an addict and was buying this house, and they wanted her to have a project to keep her busy. This house was too good, not enough projects. Everyone's different.
A lot of things people get winged out about too, particularly here where I live, is still have a lot of septic tanks. And I grew up with septic tanks. My dad was a master plumber. I don't have an issue with septic tanks. What are some of the big things you find with septic tanks that are a problem for your clients?
The biggest thing is people not understanding how they work. And
Mm,
and so there's the stress level of I've never had this, what do I do? And so part of it is the drain fields, and then where we are, and it may be the same where you are, because we're both coastal, is that there's the mound septic systems, and then there are
mhm.
other bat septic systems, which are to protect the environment. So there are different installations, and they can be $40,000 to replace. So if you don't have an inspection beforehand by a licensed plumber or septic company, then you can really have some problems. I would say be watching out for squishiness in the yard and failed drain fields. You don't want water if it's sitting in the yard. And so that's and not water, it's other stuff, but you don't want that out there. Um, so those are things that are big ones. And then don't flush things down the toilet that those disposable wipes or flushable
Yeah.
wipes, they are disposable. Yes, you can throw them away, but don't put them in the toilet. Feminine hygiene products, um, Matchbox cars, things.
Oops.
Exactly,
You hear
exactly,
kids say oops and the toilet flushes, you go, uh-oh,
exactly.
we got a problem.
Yes.
There are some unscrupulous operators out there, though, and not all, I'm just saying some,
Mhm.
where I've seen a neighbor who the guy came and told me he needed a whole new leach field, when in fact all it was the baffle was filled with fat and grease. And if they just ran that through, the rest of the septic tank was doing what it was supposed to do. It was doing biologically what it's supposed to do, was
Mhm.
breaking down everything, whatever. But this guy talked him into a huge expense, putting a whole new drain field in, and it was just the fat in the baffle. And I just looked at
Wow.
him and shook my head.
But
It cost him a lot of money,
yeah, and you're actually bringing up another good point that I didn't say, which is don't dump your grease down the drain.
right? Because it
And
collects in that baffle and clogs it right up, and it's all
yes,
over.
yes. And I was just working with a restaurant with this exact same problem that they had they had the exact same thing going on.
They
And
didn't have a grease trap.
they had a grease trap, but they did not have it. None of the system was the right size for
Oh,
this
okay,
restaurant. But what I would also say is get a second opinion. Find out,
right.
you've got to get it from someone else so that you've got more than, I like to get just three opinions, because I like to have it inevitably one is super expensive, one is less, and one is really cheap. And you want to just have some confidence there. The other thing I would say is there's a read the reviews online too, of course, and
Hmm.
there should be some good and some that have some constructive criticism in there probably. Um, but the other part of it is, and I just got distracted with those dogs barking, so I'm so sorry. But so don't dump the stuff down the drain. Get three quotes, and then who are you comfortable talking to on the phone? when you go to book it. It's great to book stuff online, and I know that makes life so much easier. And if you want to do it in the middle of the night, it makes life great that you're able to book it easily. But you need to call and talk to someone at the company, because if you have a problem afterwards, you want to know that those people are going to respond and that they took your concerns seriously. And because if they don't respond well to you when you're calling to book something and give them money, they're not going to respond when you're calling with a problem.
And let's add one more level of protection. Let's just make sure they're licensed and insured in case they mess up your yard or do something really stupid,
Yes,
which could happen.
yes.
Yeah, those are
And
important things.
yes, and you actually said something about new construction earlier that
Hmm.
that brought me to we had a builder built the house and lived there with his son, and the he the tank was full, the septic tank was full. He never had it pumped. And instead of having it pumped, what he did was build another pathway for it to go, like a block, and it just sent it over to behind the
It's
behind the
like a
detached
workaround for a dam.
garage. It was a mess. And the people moved in, and instead of having a man and his teenage son living there, it was a couple and their 6 daughters. And they used all the systems differently. And they bred French bulldog puppies who were bringing them um, stuff that had been flushed because it had been just shooting out behind the garage
Oh, no.
into a protected forest land. So then, I mean, the health department came. It was this whole thing, and it was a mess. And that the builder did it. And and that was the builder had been living there and then just did a workaround. But new construction needs inspections too.
We had a brand new house just 2 weeks ago. I crawled up in the attic for the first time to look at the hot water system. The pressure release valve was piped down into the pan, which is supposed to protect it, prevent the hot water heater itself went bad, but the pipe went right down to the bottom of the pan flush. So it didn't even give it room for the water to come out. And it wasn't even glued together. And it was just a mess. I said, this really should be going to the outside all on its own, and the panel have its own going out to the outside on its own. But you don't want to have this thing blowing out into a pan, which is only supposed to hold about 2 gallons, and it's blowing out a lot more than that. It's going to go into your roof and come down and cause all kinds of damage. And the builder's like, well, the inspector should have caught that. And I said, well, no, you should have caught that because you're the builder. You should have gone up there and inspected it before the inspector came to know what it was like. And we caught it, but you can't trust them. You can't trust the new builds that it's going to be done correctly.
Right. And it's not that necessarily that the builders are being negligent or are trying to pull one over on
It's the
you.
tradespeople.
And it's the project manager who needs to be a lot of places at once and can't be. And so the
Hmm.
home inspector and the county inspector is not looking at that. They're not taking the cover off the electric panel to see that they
No.
used screws that are not flat tipped, but actually pointy and pierce the wires. They're not checking the plumbing. The first new construction I did was 2006, and I ran that water in the tub, and it was pouring down from the primary bedroom, primary ensuite, pouring down through the drain, then through the recessed lighting in the living room,
Oh
onto
no.
the beautiful mantelpiece, onto the fireplace, onto the gorgeous hardwood floors, onto the electric panel in the basement. And that was like,
Mm.
there was no liner in the chimney, there were shingles missing. And it's
Wow.
and what I really like though is doing inspections on a new construction, doing a pre-drywall. So before anything's up, so we can see what's happening behind the walls, because our X-ray vision doesn't work any better than yours does probably.
You want to
And
have strike plates in there to make sure they're not putting nails through electrical wiring, through plumbing, and
yes,
anything else. Yeah,
yes. And king studs, you want the protection around your door frames. You want everything to be done right. Duct work actually running to where registers are going to be. Little
right.
details. We need air conditioning here.
Yeah.
But um one of those things is you just you just don't know. And when we've done them in neighborhoods, it's been interesting that by the fourth house in the neighborhood, there aren't anything. There aren't any things that we find that are wrong because the builders have gone, okay, got it. Now we can deal with this with our tradespeople and the
Hmm.
subcontractors can handle it, but we can head this off. But it's like you need a realtor when you're buying new construction. You've got to be protected and have someone looking out for your best interests. Otherwise, it's the builder, which is, even if it's just an independent builder, not a big company, it's you against the builder, and the builder's got lawyers and all the people. So
They
you
do.
need someone else who's just looking out for you. So the realtor and the home inspector are two ways to just another layers of protection.
So what are your thoughts about HVAC? I know that they're changing from 410A over to another gas, a low flammable gas, whatever that means, later on down the road. But a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into the systems. We'll see. We're going to houses with R22 and they go, I'm sorry, but that's like outdated, not used anymore. It should be 410A right now, but then we're going to change again. And the other thing we see with the HVAC systems is the pans having the rust in it from when they didn't do the proper cleaning of the drain lines, so it backed up into the pan, and people freak out about that. What are your thoughts about all this HVAC issues that go on?
I think there are so many different paths that this conversation could go down because refrigerant is just like the tip of the iceberg. So the R22 that you're talking about, which is Freon that they stopped making, those things, there are a couple of home warranty companies. I know two that actually will pay for several pounds of that if it needs to be replaced. But plumbers or HVAC people can charge whatever they want because they've stockpiled it because they're not
It's
making it
like
anymore.
125 a pound or something like that. It's
It's
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Yes. And how
Yeah.
and how much are you going to need for your system? And then so I would say you've got to budget for replacement when you've got anything with the R22. And that's Freon, but there is the potential that you could get cobble along with it if you've got the finances to cover that. And then the 410A is, I would say, we've got long enough before the new one actually phases in that if you're buying now, I would talk to several HVAC companies and get their information about it and have them explain it to you. And because the 410A is what we're using now, and you may see it as Puron on a sticker, Puron.
Mhm.
That's the current standard. But also what's going to happen is with the energy saving things is they're going to be switching to all electric things, and then they're going to be having more heat pumps and more the integrated heat pump and water heater together as one unit is what they're actually going to try and be finishing up at. And so that is going to be, all of that together means buying a new system is going to require more work now probably than it has ever in the past because you really need to talk to a bunch of experts. And so I would say probably asking you, people, someone who knows people in the community, get some referrals and really ask questions. And if you don't know what to ask, say that and then let them communicate it to you. And if they can, and it makes sense, then that's great. Take some notes and then talk to another person. But this is a big deal. Also, if I've got a crawl space in my house. If you've got a crawl space and you wanted to say, get it waterproofed or get it, this is something I'm dealing with now, is my system is from 2008. It's got Puron and it's a gas furnace and air conditioner. And I need to get my crawl space waterproofed, and it's got vents in it. Those vents are there. They work with the HVAC system as it's all working together for the whole house. So there's something too about looking at the way the air is moving in the house. So it's the refrigerant, it's the whole system, it's electric or gas or whatever you've got or oil. And then it's also looking at how is this changing what I want to do in the future. because I want to waterproof our crawl space, and I want it to be concrete in there so I can store stuff in there. But that changes the whole air makeup in the house. So how do we do that? And that's
Right. So
those
you're encapsulating the whole system down there.
that's yes. Well, and our system HVAC system is actually in the basement part. So we've got a split level. And so the HVAC is in the basement part, and then the crawl space is behind there. And but it's going to change the way the air is pulled into the house because of those vents. And I've started interviewing people about what's happening and what the future looks like, because the investment we're going to make into this new system is 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 going to be one that's long term, and it's going to impact the health and well-being of the house.
So I don't want to get too geeky here for our listeners because it's mostly for consumers, but down here they're doing these um, pressure tests on houses to make sure they're Energy Star
Mhm.
um, efficient and whatnot. And so you probably have to do that in your house since you're changing the airflow in your house. You're probably going to see where the pressures are going in and out and all that stuff.
Yep,
Is that right?
they will do a blower door test, and
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
which yep, and then so they're seeing where the gaps are. Now my house was built in 1957, and it's not tightly sealed, and but that is something else that needs to be done. I need more insulation in the attic. It's got the original 1957 insulation, and I just been low on my list of things that needed to be done.
Can you do spray foam there or not?
Yes,
Okay, well that'd be good, quick and easy.
yes. Well, and there was a mouse problem when we bought. There was a mouse problem.
Get
Big.
a big cat.
that, yes, that's a great idea. And my dogs just sniff around. There was a mouse problem when we bought the house, and the insulation got wet because there was a hole in the roof. So this like there are things like I want to get some of this insulation removed, but also the airflow from the attic is not being pulled into the living space. That's something that a lot like Orkin and Terminex, who make really charge a lot for this and say you've got to get all that bad insulation out of there. There, you don't really have to do that if it's got critter droppings in it. But you need to be aware that it's there, but you could put stuff on top of it. But
Hmm.
what Orkin and Terminex will charge $10,000-15,000 to get all the contaminated stuff out, and then they're going to put new stuff in. And I think that I've talked to people who have, just like you, with your friends with different things, who've said, well, we got this quote and we're going to get new insulation, but it's going to cost this. Or Terminex came to handle the annual termite inspection, and then they said the attic needs to have all this done to it, and now we're at $25,000. I'm like, holy smokes, that's not reasonable for most people to be putting into a house.
And why don't you tell us any way anybody could contact you if they wanted to learn more about what you're doing there?
Sure, thank you. I'm my handle on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn is my name. It's Rachel Oslin at Rachel Oslin. And uh but my company is Lodestar Inspections, and this is what I give all the buyers, all of our buyers.
Oh, you get a
This
book.
book, yes. It's the biggest business card in the world. Um,
Yes, it is.
but Lodestar at Lodestar Inspections is the another Facebook page. And our website is lodestarinspections.com. Come check us out at lodestarinspections.com though, because I really I've taken a lot of time to write information about a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in a way that is easily readable and makes sense in chunks. And then there's a long bit of information. And I also do classes every other Tuesday morning on Zoom, and on Saturday mornings, not this Saturday, but most Saturday mornings, I do 9:30 to 10, just meet with the inspector so that anyone who wants to just learn more about inspections and what they can expect can just log on and come in and get the information.
Well, that's fantastic. I hope people take advantage of that resource and enjoy learning from you, the wealth of knowledge that you have. And if they're in the DC area up there, they would hire you or one of your 6 inspectors to come by their house and show them the good, bad, and the ugly so they make the right decision with their lifetime investment. Thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to speak with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.